Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including Craig Button, standing by, brought to you by the Bayside Oceanfront Resort. The Bayside is excited to announce the launch of their new West Coast-themed seafood menu, available in the Bayside restaurant. The Bayside also has an expanded daily breakfast menu, including an array of new eggs, Benny options. Call now to book your reservation and mention Donnie and Dolly for 10% off your nightly room rate. Also, be sure to grab a Donnie and Dolly hat or T-shirt, or maybe some golf balls on sale at the Bayside, as we bring in author of the latest Craigslist, every Craigslist, as a matter of fact.
Super.
TSN Scouting Director Craig Button. Craig, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
I'm good, and when there's mostly agreement with my list, I'm happy to be the author. When it's not a lot of agreement, I'll say it was ghostwriting.
Yeah. Hey, Craig, clear something up for us when it comes to Craigslist. What is the focus? Is it all about drafting order, or is it a projection more than that?
It's 100% projection. That's all it is. It's looking ahead 3 to 5 years when players have come close to full maturity and have had an opportunity to grow in their games through, going into their draft year and being drafted to the time they reach that, which is exactly what NHL scouts do. That's exactly what the scouting process is. Listen, I may have said this to you before, but, we do a mock draft, which is kind of a fun exercise to kind of say, okay, this player would fit here or there. NHL teams, and I can guarantee you this, at number 5, the Montreal Canadiens do not know who they're going to take. They have a group of players they're considering, but they do not know who they're going to take because they got to wait to see what unfolds in front of them. Now, as that expands through 10, 15, 20, 25, teams don't know. They try to narrow it down and try to look at a group of players. So when I do a mock draft, it's totally fun, and it's just an idea about where players are ranked and what might be a good fit for a team. The NHL teams have no idea who they're going to draft after 5. How the hell am I supposed to know who they're going to draft? So that's why it's fun. But where I put a stake in the ground is on the projections, which is what my list is about 3 to 5 years from now.
How the hell are you supposed to know? You're TSN Scouting Director. I thought you knew everything, Craig. Hey,
no, that is not true. That is not true.
Hey, Craig, you have Zach Benson at number 14 on your list. He's a local kid. He's from Chilliwack. Do you think he will be around at number 11 for where the Canucks draft?
Yeah, he very well could be. I think there's some, the range of players, if you just look at let's just take my list for an example. Mm-hmm. If you look from 7 to 15, you could flip-flop those guys all around. You could put them ping pong balled and have them come out. And, there's not a lot of difference between them. One of the things that I felt in this draft is that you're looking at a real deep draft with respect to quality. Top 2 line forwards, scoring forwards, top 3 defensemen through the first 20, 24, 25 picks. And I think that defines quality. So, I think it comes down to, where do you see Zach Benson going, fitting into your team? I'll give you an example. Cole Perfetti went 10th in the draft to New Jersey. And a number of teams picking ahead of 10 talked about Cole Perfetti and how much they liked him. But they were also concerned a little bit about his size. And so he fell, falling to 10 is falling. And I would bet that some of those teams, looking back on it, might have reconsidered. And not that the picks they made were wrong or bad, but I think that's what happens in a draft. And I think you could see Zach Benson go 6 or 7. You could see him go 12, 14 in that regard. But there's not much difference between the players 7 to 15, 7 to 14 on that list. And Zach Benson, to me, certainly projects as a really, I think he projects as a good offensive forward in the National Hockey League.
Craig, what are you, a best player available guy or a draft for position. The reason we ask you, you've been on our show numerous times, you've said the Canucks need defensemen. Well, the last 4 years, they haven't taken a defenseman in the first 3 rounds. Should they take a defenseman at 11?
So there's 3 parts to this. Number one is, if it was just about best player available, it would be an easy exercise. Every team defines best player available differently. So, how you look at the draft and how you look at the players, how they fit into your organization is going to come down to the individual assessments and evaluations of each team and their group of scouts. Number 2, if there's no defense, I never believe that you should be forcing a position player just because you might need that position. If there's not somebody that's worthy of being taken, there's no way I'm taking a defender that I think is a number 5 over a forward that I think can be a top 2-line scoring winger. I'll never ever do that. I don't think any team should ever do that. That's not. Just keep in mind, it's not like the NFL where you're looking to draft players that come right into your lineup and play. These players aren't ready to come in. Number 3, when there are players available and you have such a shortage of top-end players in a certain position, you better look at them and you better be ready to select them. And I think this year for the Vancouver Canucks, the opportunity is clearly there for them. And, everybody talks about drafting players later and getting diamonds in. That's great. You always believe in the players you're drafting later in the draft. But when that opportunity comes to draft defensemen that can really make a material difference to your team, and your team needs those types of players, you better not overlook them.
Craig, the Canucks talked to a defenseman, Tom Willander, in Buffalo. They took him out for dinner. What can you tell us about him?
Well, here's how I'll start. I love Tom Willander, and he's a different player than Axel Sandin Pellikka. So I'm going to do a little bit of a comparable style to start with. To me, he's kind of a cross between Charlie McAvoy and Rasmus Andersson in Calgary. That type of a player. He's robust. I think he can contribute a lot on the offensive side. Not maybe at that. Certainly, very few players can do what Quinn Hughes does, but at a really good offensive side, but a really good defender, a really good player that can play like a Charlie McAvoy, move the puck up the ice, and be hard to play against and play defensively. That's how I see Tommy Willander. I have him 8 on my list. I have Sandin Pellikka 5 and Willander 8. Again, we can flip around on that. I think they're the 2 best defensemen in the draft.
Wow. Okay, breaking news today, although it had been rumored and earlier this week, yesterday, we saw Ryan Huska get introduced as the Flames' new head coach. Peter Laviolette lands with the Rangers in New York. He's going to be their head coach. Why is it, Craig, that Peter Laviolette, much like Pete DeBoer, never has a problem finding another job?
Well, the first thing I would say to you, Donnie, is that he's a good coach. And, I think that every team has to evaluate what they may need at a particular point in time. I mean, Peter won the Stanley Cup in 06 with the Carolina Hurricanes. We know that he's led other teams deep into the playoffs and had success with them. And so is Peter. So you look at what their options are. And I know that there's a lot of talk about, the coaching carousel. But that coaching carousel hasn't worked out too badly for the Vegas Golden Knights this year. Yeah. It certainly hasn't worked out too badly for the Florida Panthers this year. It hasn't worked out too bad because Peter DeBoer got the Dallas Stars deep into the playoffs. So evaluating where your team is at, what's available, who's available in terms of trying to guide your team through a period of time. And I think that's where, you try to balance out, okay, do we need a fresh face, a fresh voice? Everybody's looking for a fresh voice, but you need a fresh face like the Calgary Flames are looking at with Ryan Huska. But what's interesting, Donnie, is that in Calgary, Ryan Huska was part of the staff for the last 5 years. Is it the right thing to bring in an assistant into the same team? I don't know if there's an absolute right answer here in any regard. I would just say that Peter Laviolette's top 10 in coaching wins in the National Hockey League. Well, that tells you he's been part of good teams, and he's found a way when you win a Stanley Cup and you get to the Stanley Cup final as many times as he has. There's a pretty good record of success. And then you look at where the New York Rangers are at, and this is what they're looking for. They're not looking to move the team forward. They're looking for the team to compete for the Stanley Cup. And I'm not talking like first round. It's about getting there and having a chance to play for it in the Stanley Cup final. Peter Laviolette's record indicates that he has done that. That's what Chris Drew is hoping for now.
His sixth team. And quickly, Craig, with or without Matthew Tkachuk, what chance do you give the Florida Panthers of extending the Stanley Cup final?
Slim and real close to none, even with a healthy Matthew Tkachuk. The Vegas Golden Knights are so deep, and the four lines, the six defensemen, Aiden Hill, they're just playing at an elite level. They don't beat themselves. They grind you down. They're comfortable in low-scoring games. And when you have a team right now where the Florida Panthers find themselves, not deep enough, I just think the task becomes, near impossible. Can it happen? Yeah. Sergei Bobrovsky standing on his head, a break here, a break there, could happen. But, yeah, I really do think it's closer to none than it is to slim.
Craig's list available, tsn.ca. Always a good read. Craig, thanks so much for this. We'll talk to you next week.
Great. I always look forward to it. Have a great day.
Outstanding. Craig Button,